From this very moment, there stands before you a choice so profound that it may alter the entire trajectory of your existence. On one side lies the well-worn path of mediocrity, a road marked by suffering, limitation, and resignation. On the other, the boundless road of expansion, greatness, and radical awakening beckons. In these moments, as you stand at this metaphysical crossroad, the question is no longer about what the world holds for you, but rather what you are ready to become. Within the next few moments, prepare to unravel 3 of the most mind-altering techniques derived from the teachings of Neville Goddard, a man whose understanding of consciousness could shatter the illusory limitations that have long confined your reality. These teachings are not idle philosophies. They are blueprints to rebuild your past, inhabit your future, and dismantle the simulation that has quietly defined the contours of your life. But before these doors of transformation can swing open, pause and ask yourself, not with surface curiosity, but with the full intensity of your being, are you truly prepared to let go of the victim identity and step boldly into the role of the creator? Because this is not about simply improving your life. This is about choosing a complete rebirth. And now that you are ready, truly ready, let me take you by the hand and guide you into the realm where reality bends and the universe listens not to words or actions, but to the silent script of consciousness that plays in the shadows of your mind. Have you ever sat in wonder, watching others seem to attract success and abundance with almost no effort, while you toil away without reward? The difference is rarely in effort and never in worth. The secret lies in the understanding of what this world truly is. Neville Goddard, a spiritual pioneer decades ahead of his time, peeled back the veil of illusion and found that the reality we experience is not a hard and fixed thing, but a projected simulation, a mirror of the state within. His teachings suggest that everything we see, every encounter, every event, is a direct outpicturing of our dominant thoughts and beliefs. Picture your mind as a powerful projector and the world you live in as the screen. You do not change the movie by painting over the screen. You change it by altering the reel, the film within. To make this real, let me tell you about Sarah, a woman whose story embodies the very essence of Neville's teachings. She was a struggling artist, dismissed and overlooked, her talents ignored by a world that seemed indifferent. But one day, something shifted. She came across Goddard's work and committed not just to understanding it, but to living it. She began each day in the vivid experience of already being successful. She did not hope or wish, she felt it, lived it, breathed it. In her imagination, her art was celebrated, her name spoken with admiration, and her work selling out in exhibitions that had yet to exist. But in her consciousness, they already had, and soon the physical world caught up with her inner truth. She found herself invited to host a solo exhibition, and not a single piece remained unsold. It wasn't magic. It was the simulation bending to match the state she had adopted. This is the crux of Goddard's message. Consciousness is the only reality. The outer world, as tangible and unyielding as it seems, is no more than a reflection of the self. Like a mirror that cannot smile until you smile into it, the world cannot shift until you shift within. The things you see and experience are coded by your assumptions, your deep-seated beliefs, some that you chose consciously, but most that were installed in the background of your upbringing and cultural programming. These beliefs act like invisible lines of code in the operating system of your life, quietly dictating what you see, who you meet, and how events unfold. If your life feels chaotic, stagnant, or painfully predictable, it's not because the world is broken. It's because the script running within you is looping the same scene again and again. This leads us to a startling realization. If your consciousness truly creates reality, then everything you believe, especially the things you assume without questioning, matters far more than anything outside of you. Goddard likened this life to a movie theater, where most people are so caught up in the film that they forget they are not only the audience, but the ones running the projector. We are lulled into the drama, hypnotized by the events, reactive to every twist and turn, never pausing to remember that the reel spinning the tale is sitting within us. His teachings are the tap on your shoulder, the jolt that wakes you up in the seat of your life and whispers, "You are the one in control." With this awareness comes power. You start noticing the threads that tie your inner dialogue to the events around you. You see the way a belief about scarcity leads to consistent lack, how an assumption of unworthiness manifests in rejection, how a fear of failure brings self-sabotage and stagnation. And suddenly, with terrifying clarity, you realize that you've been the architect all along. But the beauty is that once you see the code, you can rewrite it. You can become the conscious programmer, no longer at the whim of accidental beliefs or inherited fears. You can strip away the layers of illusion and deliberately build a life aligned with the truth of who you really are. But here's the twist that many never consider. What if even the beliefs you hold most dear, your core assumptions about how life works, are nothing more than implanted limitations, pieces of the simulation itself? Phrases like, "money doesn't grow on trees," or "life is unfair," aren't innocent sayings. They are lines of code installed early, often by well-meaning guardians of your upbringing, who themselves were trapped in the simulation. Over time, they sink deeper and deeper into the subconscious, not only shaping your expectations, but becoming the very filter through which you view all experience. It's like walking around wearing a pair of glasses with lenses tinted by fear, lack, and doubt. You forget you're even wearing them, and worse, you start to believe that the world really looks that way. Let's dig deeper. Picture a child, naturally expressive, full of creativity. That child loves to draw, dreams of painting worlds no one has seen, but one day someone says, "You'll never make money as an artist." It lands like a stone in their heart. That single sentence becomes a line of code, and from that point on, every artistic impulse carries the weight of doubt. The dream dims. The child still draws, maybe even becomes skilled, but the belief festers until one day they give up entirely. This is the virus of societal conditioning, and it runs quietly, infecting not just individual lives but collective realities. We grow up hearing, "Life is hard," "There's never enough," "You can't trust anyone." And soon that's the world we live in, not because it's true, but because belief is the mechanism through which truth becomes reality. This, according to Goddard, is the matrix, the mental prison made from nothing more than belief structures. And the tragedy is that most people don't even realize they're locked in it. They live as if the walls around them are made of brick and steel, when in fact they're made of thought and assumption. The scarcity mindset, the victim mentality, the resignation that says, "This is just how life is." These are the programs running in the background. But here lies the paradox. The moment you realize that your prison is self-imposed, the door swings open. Because if you programmed it, you can reprogram it. And that changes everything. So how do you escape? How do you rewrite the source code of your being and step into a new simulation? One of abundance, clarity, freedom, and joy. It begins with awareness, but awareness alone is not enough. You must go deeper. You must practice. And the first key, the simplest and most overlooked technique in this work, is silence. not passive quiet, but a deliberate stillness that allows your true self to emerge from beneath the static of societal noise. Imagine sitting in a still room, eyes closed, breath steady. For a moment, everything fades, the worries, the chatter, the expectations, and in that silence, something ancient within you stirs. It is not new, it is not foreign, it is you before the programming. Meditation is not about retreating from the world, but reclaiming the power to engage with it fully and consciously. It is in silence that we hear the true voice of creation. Think of your mind as a pond. When it's agitated, you see only chaos. But when it is still, you see the truth at the bottom. This clarity is not just mental peace, it is the key to accessing the source of all manifestation. When the mind is quiet, the simulation's static loses its grip, and the deeper programming can be accessed and rewritten. Through daily practice, even 5 minutes of focused breathing, you begin to strip away the noise and reveal the canvas upon which your reality is painted. This is where the transformation begins, with stillness, with breath, with presence. Because only when you return to yourself can you begin the sacred task of becoming who you truly are. As the silence deepens, something miraculous begins to happen. Not outside you, but within. The noise of the world, the clamor of conditioned beliefs and fears, the relentless background hum of old assumptions begins to dissolve into the still waters of your awareness. And in that silence, not only does peace arrive, but power. Real, unshakable power. The kind that doesn't scream or demand, but simply is. You begin to feel it, the ancient remembering that you are not the puppet of fate, but the dreamer of the dream, not a cog in the machinery of life, but the very engineer of the code that writes reality itself. Meditation, in the context of Goddard's teachings, is not merely a practice for calm or stress relief. It is a sacred return to the original operating system. When the mind is no longer cluttered with static, the heart speaks, and from this quiet center, you begin to rewrite the narrative not just of your day, but of your life. But what if your life isn't just shaped by the thoughts you think today? What if the events of your past, those heavy, haunted moments that never quite loosen their grip, are still silently influencing your current state of being? What if that embarrassing failure, that missed opportunity, that betrayal, those words spoken in anger are not just memories, but active scripts still running in the background, draining your energy and shaping your beliefs? This is where one of Neville Goddard's most astonishing tools comes into play, a technique so revolutionary in its simplicity that it borders on the unbelievable. He called it revision, and if used properly, it becomes your cosmic remote control, capable of rewinding the moments of your life and recoding them into something entirely new. Imagine this. Your life, like a television show, is filled with scenes, some triumphant, some forgettable, some painful. With revision, you're no longer a passive viewer. You are the director, editor, and screenwriter. Let's say there was a day where everything went wrong, a job interview that went off the rails, a conversation that turned into conflict, an encounter that left you feeling unseen or unworthy. Rather than accept those moments as fixed, revision invites you to close your eyes, return to the scene and reimagine it, exactly as you wish it had happened. You see yourself walking in confidently, speaking clearly, receiving the response you desired. You don't just watch it, you feel it. You step into the new version of the event as if it were the only one that ever happened. And then something shifts, not just emotionally but energetically. The old pain dissolves, the new narrative takes root, and your consciousness begins to embody the version of you who lived that new scene. Now, to the skeptical mind, this may sound like childish make-believe, but the teachings of Goddard, rooted in the understanding that consciousness is the only true reality, Insist that this process is not pretend, it is power, because what you carry in your mind becomes the blueprint for what you live in your world. If your consciousness holds an unhealed version of the past, your reality will reflect its scars. But if you revise, you erase the scar from the root. You change not only how you remember the past, but how your reality forms around you today. This is the subtle miracle of revision. It doesn't just alter the memory, it changes the meaning, the energy, the assumptions, and ultimately the reality that stems from it. It's not about denying what happened or escaping into fantasy. It's about choosing to no longer carry the emotional charge and limiting belief that was born in that moment. It's about releasing the trapped energy, correcting the internal script, and reclaiming your power to define what events mean to you. Because meaning creates belief, and belief sculpts reality. Imagine revising that moment where someone said you weren't good enough, not by ignoring it, but by replaying it as a moment of encouragement instead. Imagine rewriting a childhood filled with lack into one filled with love and abundance. With enough emotional immersion and repetition, these revised scenes overwrite the old ones like new code replacing corrupted data. The shift happens within, and then the world begins to shift around you to match. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes. You start to look at your life not as a sequence of inevitable facts, but as a malleable narrative. You begin to feel like an artist standing before a canvas that can be changed at will. Nothing is final, nothing is fixed. Even the past, the one thing most people believe to be unchangeable, becomes fluid in your hands. And as you revise your memories, you also begin to revise your identity. You let go of being the victim. You step into being the creator. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What do I choose this to mean? And who do I become because of it?" But revision is only one side of the coin. If we only rewrite the past, we risk staying stuck in repair mode. To truly embody your creative power, you must also learn to live in the end, to step into the experience of your future desires as though they are already real. This, according to Goddard, is where the true magic begins. The technique is as profound as it is simple. Instead of yearning for your dreams, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You don't look at your goals as distant destinations. You inhabit them now. You dress your thoughts in the colors of success. You breathe as if the love you desire is already in your arms. You walk through the day as if the promotion is already yours, the house already bought, the health already restored. You live in the end. And here's the incredible truth. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined state and reality. It accepts the emotional experience as fact. And once it does, it begins to orchestrate reality around you to match that internal state. Not through struggle or manipulation, but through alignment. Opportunities arise, people appear, ideas flow. The world begins to reorganize itself to accommodate the version of you that you have already become within. It's not about wishing or hoping. It's about becoming, feeling, being. To practice this, choose a quiet moment. Close your eyes. Bring to mind a specific desire, not in the form of a wish, but as a finished scene. Imagine what your life looks like after the desire has already come true. See the setting, hear the sounds, feel the textures. Let the joy, pride, peace, or excitement soak into your being like sunlight through your skin. Hold that scene, not with desperation, but with certainty, as if you're simply remembering something that already happened. And then carry that feeling with you into your waking life. Let it inform your posture, your decisions, your tone of voice. You are no longer trying to become. You are being. And being is the gateway through which reality must respond. But of course, doubts will come. The simulation has inertia. Old programming doesn't disappear overnight. You may find yourself slipping back into fear or skepticism, especially when external circumstances seem unchanged. This is the test. This is where you hold the line, not with force but with faith. When the outside world reflects the old version, you remind yourself that it is only catching up, that what you see is the residue of the old state, not evidence that the new one isn't working. You remain in the end. You return to the feeling, again and again. Like tuning an instrument, you recalibrate your inner state until it becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. Living in the end is not a denial of current reality. It is the creation of a new one. It is a rebellion against the lie that you must wait to feel good, that circumstances must align before you can relax, that happiness is a finish line on some distant horizon. No, happiness is the fuel, belief is the engine, feeling is the map. You don't become worthy of the life you want by suffering through the one you have. You claim it, feel it, and live it now. And as you continue to embody this practice, you begin to see life differently. You stop reacting to circumstances and start guiding them. You no longer chase outcomes, you magnetize them, because you have become the person who already has them. You have stepped into the vibrational field where your desires already exist, and the universe, bound by the laws of resonance, must comply. It is not personal, it is mechanical, it is law, and still there is more. Living in the end is not just about achieving goals or manifesting things. It is a spiritual act, a declaration that you are not separate from your desires, that you are not a beggar at the feet of fate, but a divine being co-creating your experience with infinite intelligence. It is a remembering of your place in the grand cosmic play, not as a victim, but as a conscious actor who knows the role and writes the lines. This is where your power lies, not in effort, but in awareness, not in control, but in surrender to the truth that the real you, the deep, eternal you, is already whole, already worthy, already enough. This practice transforms your life not by changing who you are, but by revealing who you've always been. The illusion falls away, the simulation is exposed, and standing in its place is you, the dreamer, awake in the dream. So now the veil begins to thin. You have peered into the workings of the machine, glimpsed the control room of your own consciousness, and begun to rewrite the story from the inside out. The past is no longer a weight chained to your ankles. It is pliable, re-editable, a story that bends to the will of your inner vision. The future is not some distant land you must journey to, but a reality that already exists in your imagination, waiting for you to inhabit it fully. And now, as you begin to see that the simulation bends to the state you occupy, you also realize something even more profound. The world around you is not a stage set for you to perform on. It is a mirror. Every person, every challenge, every repeated pattern is a reflection of the assumptions and beliefs you carry in the quietest corners of your mind. This isn't punishment, it's precision. The simulation shows you exactly what you need to see in order to wake up and reclaim your authorship. Neville Goddard often spoke of the idea that life is not happening to you, but through you and from you. It is not an external force pressing down on your will. It is the outpicturing of your own inner state. This realization is not always comfortable. It requires a level of responsibility that most people are not ready to carry. Because once you know that you are the dreamer of the dream, every complaint, every moment of lack, every unhealed relationship becomes an invitation, not an injustice. You stop looking for who to blame and start asking, what in me is being reflected here? This question, when asked sincerely and without judgment, becomes a compass that points you inward, back to the source of it all, your own consciousness. And then the game changes completely, because now, instead of reacting to the world, you begin to sculpt it, not by force, but by alignment. You don't try to fix people or change circumstances. You change your inner state, and the reflection shifts on its own. This is not mystical mumbo-jumbo. It is the immutable law of consciousness. You are not a victim of external reality. You are its author, its artist, its coder. Everything you experience is feedback, a looping mechanism showing you exactly what you've been believing, assuming, and feeling beneath the surface. The same argument that keeps happening, the same disappointing job outcomes, the same financial stress, all of it is code. And that code can be changed. But there is another level still. Because this journey is not just about creating a more comfortable life. It's about awakening to the truth of who and what you really are. And what you are is not just a body or a personality or even a soul. You are consciousness itself. You are the dreamer, the dream and the act of dreaming all at once. Goddard didn't speak of God as something outside us, something watching from above. He taught that God is the imagination itself, the creative principle within each of us, that I am is not just a name, but a key. When you say, I am wealthy, I am loved, I am whole, you are not hoping. You are declaring reality. You are invoking the divine creative force in its purest form. And with this comes perhaps the most startling revelation of all. Everything you believe to be solid, real, fixed, is not. The laws you think govern your life, time, space, limitation, cause and effect, are rules of the game, yes, but they are bendable, breakable even, when viewed from the level of the dreamer. We live as if we are at the mercy of time, when in fact, imagination creates time. We live as if our desires are in the future, when in truth, they exist now, fully formed, waiting for us to match their frequency. What separates the person living their dream life from the one stuck in struggle is not luck or talent, it's the state they occupy. One walks through the world as though they already are the person they wish to be. The other waits to become that person once the world gives them permission. But the world never gives permission, it only reflects. So what does it mean to truly wake up inside this dream? It means stepping into a level of self-awareness so complete that the boundaries between you and the universe dissolve. You begin to see the hidden architecture of life. You notice how thoughts become things, how emotions ripple outward, shaping encounters and opportunities. You catch yourself in moments of unconscious creation, reacting in fear, doubting your worth, speaking lack into being, and instead of spiraling, you shift, you revise. You return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You remember who you are, and in doing so, you change the outcome again and again until it becomes your new default. This awakening process is not always smooth. It will test you. The old patterns will fight to survive. The simulation will tempt you to fall back asleep with the comforts of the familiar. But every trigger is a gift. Every challenge is a training ground. You are being invited to embody your power more deeply, to take your place as the conscious creator of your world. When frustration arises, it's not a failure. It's feedback. It's the mirror saying, look here. There's something in your code that wants healing, wants rewriting. And you meet it, not with shame, but with curiosity. You say, thank you for showing me what I had forgotten I believed. And then you choose again. You see, this journey isn't about perfection. It's about mastery, not control over life, but collaboration with it. Not rigid discipline, but fluid awareness. Mastery means knowing how to return to center. It means holding the vision even when the world looks the opposite. It means laughing when doubt shows up. because you've seen this before. It means standing calmly in storms that once would have wrecked you, because you know the storm is not a sign of danger, it's a sign of data. And data is power when interpreted with truth. The deeper you go into this work, the more you begin to feel that life itself is not something to endure or conquer, but something to dance with. You become the lucid dreamer, aware not just in your meditations, but in the grocery store, in traffic, in difficult conversations. You catch the inner voice that wants to spiral into fear, and you whisper to it, "That's not the story anymore." And just like that, you're back in the seat of the dreamer. You're back in alignment. And in this alignment, things begin to shift in ways that logic can't explain. People call it magic, luck, coincidence. You call it normal, because it is. It is your natural state. Things just work. Opportunities fall into your lap. Synchronicities become daily occurrences. You meet the right person at the right time. You get the idea you need in the shower. The check arrives the day before the bill is due. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. This is what happens when you stop being the character and remember you are the author. And then something beautiful unfolds. You no longer obsess over what you can get. You begin to ask, what can I give? Who can I become? How can I live in such alignment with my divine self that I leave a trail of miracles behind me? And this is where the real transformation happens. Because now your life is not just about you. Your awakening becomes a lighthouse. Your alignment becomes a tuning fork for others. Your joy becomes an invitation. People feel it. They don't know why they're drawn to you, why they feel lighter in your presence, but they do. Because you're not reflecting the simulation anymore. You're broadcasting from source. And this is how the world changes. Not through revolution or resistance, but through resonance. As more of us remember who we are and live from that place, the simulation itself begins to rewrite. Old systems collapse. New ones emerge. Not because we fought them, but because we outgrew them. This is the quiet power of the awakened dreamer. This is what it means to live as a conscious creator. So as you continue to practice the art of inner transformation, revision, meditation, living in the end, remember this: you are not fixing yourself. You are unveiling yourself. You are not reaching for something outside. You are returning to what's always been inside. And in that return, everything else falls into place. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer wait, you decide. You no longer beg, you declare. And when challenges come, and they will, you meet them not as signs of failure, but as thresholds of expansion. You step through with grace, you revise the meaning, you embody the end, and the simulation bends. This is the way, this is the work, this is the dream. And you, now awake, now aware, now remembering, you are the dreamer within it. Now that the veil has lifted and you've begun walking through life with the awareness of a conscious creator, something deeper begins to settle in your bones. Not just an intellectual understanding, but an embodied knowing. You are no longer seeking transformation as something outside of yourself. You are it. You've stepped beyond the role of the seeker and into the reality of the dreamer who remembers the dream. The space between desiring and becoming has collapsed, not because the world outside has changed, but because the world within has been rewritten. And with this realization, a sacred responsibility begins to awaken inside you. Not the heavy kind born of duty or pressure, but the kind that comes from remembering that you are holding a pen in your hand and every moment is a fresh page. You are the author now. The simulation bends to your narrative, not because you force it, but because it must respond to your state. And that is the law. That is the truth you now live. But with that pen in your hand comes the need for consistency, for deliberate practice, for a quiet devotion to this new way of being. It's not a one-time epiphany, it's a lifelong dance, and one of the most powerful ways to root this transformation into your daily experience is through the practice of keeping a manifestation journal. Not just a notebook filled with wish lists and shallow affirmations, but a sacred document, a mirror for your becoming. Each day you take a few minutes to write down what you are creating as if it is already done. You do not beg the universe. You don't plead. You declare. You say, "Today I woke up in joy. I received a message that shifted my entire business. I felt loved. I saw magic. I created freely." And as you write, you feel it. That's the key, not the words, but the state. This journal becomes more than paper and ink. It becomes a map of your inner world, a blueprint for the simulation to follow, a spellbook in the truest, oldest sense of the word. Alongside this, you begin using revision at night, like clockwork, not because you're chasing perfection, but because you now know that every scene of the day is clay in your hands. You replay the moments that didn't align with your true self, not to deny them, but to transmute them. You turn the argument into peace, the rejection into redirection, the fear into clarity. And in doing so, you soften the edges of your days. You fall asleep not burdened by what went wrong, but elevated by what you chose to remember instead. This nightly ritual doesn't just change your mood, it changes your trajectory. Because your subconscious processes what you give it in the final moments before sleep. So you feed it wholeness, you feed it fulfillment. You feed it the end you've already chosen to live in. Of course, there will be days when doubt returns, creeping in like fog across the landscape of your mind. The simulation, after all, is persistent. It wants you to forget. It thrives when you go back to sleep, when you let the old patterns play out unchecked. But you are different now. You are not surprised by the doubt. You greet it like an old visitor, smile at its presence, and then gently escort it out the door. You remind yourself that the presence of fear is not failure. It is a flicker of the old code. And you, with the patience of a master craftsman, rewrite it once more. You don't panic when the evidence doesn't show up immediately. You don't demand signs. You already know that the reality is on its way, forming behind the scenes in response to your state. You walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows how this game works now. You may begin to notice too that your world reflects your state faster than ever before. A single shift in mood brings a surprising phone call. A quiet moment of gratitude results in unexpected abundance. A simple assumption, "Today will be easy," leads to a day filled with flow. And the more this happens, the more you realize that it's not coincidence. It's coherence. The outer mirrors the inner, always. And that understanding becomes the foundation for a life lived in effortless creation. You no longer hustle and grind. You align. You feel the end. And the end comes. You know that every desire carries with it the energy of its fulfillment. And your only job is to become the version of you who already lives in that fulfillment. Then, and only then, does it become real. But this awakening doesn't stop with your own life. As your vibration rises, as your reality transforms, something else begins to emerge. A longing not just to create for yourself, but to contribute to the awakening of others. You realize that your joy is not separate from the collective. That every time you choose love over fear, you send a ripple outward. Every time you embody abundance, you expand what is possible for those around you. You become a beacon, a reminder, a living invitation, not through preaching or teaching, but simply by being who you are, fully, freely, unapologetically. Your life becomes a transmission, and people feel it. They might not have the words for it, but they'll sense something different in your presence. They'll ask what changed. They'll want to know your secret. And you'll smile because you'll know there is no secret, only remembrance. And so the mission becomes greater, not heavier, but holier. You begin to see every interaction as an opportunity to create with intention. You speak with kindness not because it's moral, but because it vibrates at a frequency that aligns with your end. You give not from lack, but from the overflow. You love not to get love back, but because it's who you are now. This is not performance, it is embodiment. You live as the end result. You walk through the world as the healed, the abundant, the free, and the world, by law, mirrors that back to you. But even more than that, your awakening becomes an offering. Your healed past, your revised stories, your manifested desires, all of them become a message to others. You can remember too. You can wake up. You are not bound by your circumstances. You are not limited by your history. You are the dreamer, the player, the coder, the source. And once you know that, nothing will ever be the same again. So as you stand here now, on the threshold of a new way of being, pause and reflect. What are you still waiting for? What illusion are you still clinging to? What lie have you mistaken for truth? Whatever it is, let it fall away. Let it dissolve in the light of your awareness. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to chase anything. You only need to remember what you already are. A being of infinite potential, wrapped in the story of a human life, here not to survive the simulation, but to master it. And that mastery begins right now, in this breath, in this moment. Choose again. Choose the end you want to live in. Choose the version of you who already has the peace, the success, the love. Not someday, not after the circumstances change, but now. Because now is all there is. Now is where the power lives. Now is where the shift begins. And once it begins, it becomes inevitable. You are the dreamer, dreaming the world awake. The simulation has no power over you unless you give it permission. And you, dear one, are done giving away your power. You have remembered who you are. So go forward not as a seeker, but as a creator. Not as someone hoping, but as someone knowing. Live from the end. Revise the story, meditate into stillness, speak from truth, move with intention. Let your presence change the room. Let your joy change the field. Let your life be the evidence that miracles are not exceptions. They are the rule when consciousness is understood. The universe is not testing you. It is responding to you, always. So write the next chapter with boldness, dream the next scene with clarity, and live each day as if the divine is writing through your fingertips, because it is. The world you experience tomorrow will be shaped by what you assume tonight. So choose well, not because you must, but because you can. The pen is in your hand. The simulation awaits your signal. So give it something beautiful to reflect. Let this be the moment you stop wondering if it's real and start living as if you know that it is. The power to change your reality has always been within you. You've seen behind the curtain. You've touched the code. Now it's time to live as the one who wrote it. Welcome to the new world. Welcome to the life you've already created. Welcome home.